Talk Real Estate with Sharon McNamara, sponsored by Boston Connect Real Estate Services.
Hi, I'm Sharon McNamara, and you are listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable. Let me share a little bit about my background before we get started. I am the broker-owner of Boston Connect Real Estate, a boutique real estate firm that is home to over 30 real estate sales and marketing consultants who service home buyers and home sellers throughout Boston, the South Shore, the South Coast, and Cape Cod. Our firm takes pride in assisting our clients in the next chapter of their lives by taking a holistic approach to their real estate endeavors. We believe that every move should be a moving experience. Every week, my real estate team member Mary Baker and I, along with the director of Boston Connect Real Estate, Melissa Wallace, provide you with our unique marketing approach to selling homes and share with you our expertise in navigating the home buying process. We like to mix it up sometimes, so not only will you hear our perspective on real estate topics, but you will hear the expert thoughts and opinions of some of our real estate agents at Boston Connect Real Estate and the preferred professionals that we trust. Be part of our roundtable. If you have any questions during the show, please call 781-837-4900. We'd love to talk real estate. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and wherever you listen to podcasts at Talk Real Estate Roundtable. If you would like a one-on-one consultation with me and my team or one of the dedicated agents at Boston Connect Real Estate to discuss your real estate needs, you can connect with us at bostonconnect.com or 781-826-8000. Now, sit back, relax, take good notes, and let's talk real estate.
And hello to all our South Shore neighbors. My name is Melissa Wallace, and you are listening to Talk Real Estate Roundtable. I am joined by the one and only Mary Baker in studio tonight. Hello, Mary.
Hi, it's nice to be here on this lovely day.
Yes, it's so beautiful out.
What a nor'easter.
What a nor'easter. How will we recover?
I don't know. Oh, the tree limbs.
I don't know.
The tree limbs.
I know we're joking right now, but it's just the start of it. It was supposed to start at like 3, but now it's like, oh, look, I was going to say it's 5:15, but it's not. It's 6:15 because we did not change the clock in here. So if we get confused, my apologies.
Oh,
it's also been a day.
I guess it is.
Yeah.
2 a.m. snow? Till snow?
Who knows?
Snow?
I have no idea.
You know what? It's just like us to get snow in like the first week of spring. It's just like us, Massachusetts.
Is it the first day
Oh,
of spring?
no.
When's the first
spring
day
is
of spring?
next week. I was confusing with daylight savings.
Yeah, so daylight savings was a couple days
let's
ago.
get it
I'm
over
still
with,
very
winter.
confused, not to be confused with always being confused, but whatever. But yeah, it's already been a day, and now we are ending it with this lovely show. And we sort of came up with this topic, but I feel like
I think it's important. We're seeing it a lot more.
It's definitely important. I think maybe we could be a little transparent with sort of waiving contingencies and what that sort of means and the impact. But there we go. I let the cat out of the bag. Tonight we're going to be talking about the impact of waiving contingencies. And also, if you follow us on social media, so McNamara Broker Team or Boston Connect Real Estate, you'll see my little videos that I'm challenged to do every Tuesday and Saturday or the day before our shows to sort of give a sneak peek. Yeah, I was challenged by Sharon to do those every week. And I'm like,
get some interaction going.
Yeah, it's funny because I think I said it on the show last week, or maybe I said it, I don't know, to somebody at some point in my life that I was like, I don't have a problem doing the show because it's like, it's our show. Like, I never get nervous doing the show, even though we're live and, people can be like, okay, what's her problem type of thing. But whenever I call into the studio in the morning and talk to Rob, like, I get so nervous.
Oh, see, I'm the opposite. When I call Rob, I'm like, hey, what's up?
Because
How are
Rob
you?
was your client.
Yeah.
That's different. I've
just known him for so long. He's just like that friendly radio voice that I talk to all the time. So I'm like, oh, you're talking to me this time.
I know. Well, that's how I feel, but like sort of opposite, if that makes sense. I get nervous because I'm like, oh, it's Rob's show. Like, I have to be like
professional.
It's the morning. First off,
I mean,
we are on Tuesday nights, and things
Everybody
can get pretty rowdy.
Us to be a little bit slappy.
Yeah. Things can get a little rowdy on a Tuesday night or Saturday at 10, Saturday morning at 10. But when I call in and talk to Rob, I'm always like, oh, I have to be like professional. I'm calling into Rob's show. But if Rob called into our show, we'd be fine with him just,
hanging out
with us. But We will note that Sharon is not here with us tonight, but she might be listening. She might not be, but say hi, Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi. I'm going to get us all hooked up on Facebook, so why don't you sort of give a little introduction of
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Cool. So we wanted to talk about waiving contingencies tonight because we are entering that tougher, so I don't think we ever really left it, but in recent shows or the past several months, we've been talking about how buyers are definitely seeing themselves in a more competitive or having a little bit more of the driver's seat role, I guess, in multiple offer situations or even in offer situations, right? And then over the past several weeks, it's been pretty prevalent that buyers are kind of out and in full force. They're out, they're in full force, they're ready to compete, they're ready to go. I mean, of course, we're talking about different demographics and different price ranges across the board, but we are definitely feeling as if that spring market push that we had thought, maybe usually comes a little bit earlier in the year. I felt as if in 2023, we're just starting to see it over the past couple of weeks, probably end of February into March, whereas in previous years we would have said like February is where we really started to feel it. But we're full swing into spring market, in my opinion, right now. So with that comes a lot of offers. Comes a lot of strategy with your offers. And the first thing that a buyer will say that they can control outside of price, because, right, sometimes your price point is dictated as to what it is. There's not too much flexibility there. The next thing that you have the most control over are your contingencies. So that's where we get into waiving of contingencies and what it means when you're waiving them.
Yeah, I would say, yes, I agree to it being in full force, the spring market. However, there's still no inventory. So I feel like we're in the spring market because we're back to multiple offers.
You're 100% right.
And, it's so wild to me. And I can't wait to do a show after I close on a house so I can give my full perspective of what it's like to be a buyer in this market. I know that we can talk about buyers all day long, but when you are one, it can be pretty emotional, and Mary knows that I've been...
It's a roller coaster.
I've been a little emotional the past few days, and emotional through my journey itself, but I'm trying not to give up. I won't give up because the goal is to have a house. But I can't wait to have that show and just sort of give my perspective. And
it's like a buyer's tell-all.
Yeah, a buyer's tell-all. It might have to be like after hours dark because I might swear a little bit, and we can't do that on WATD. It might have to be just a podcast.
Yeah. Do a little video.
But in the end, it'll all be worth it. But yeah, so, going back to waiving contingencies, I think, you don't really know as a buyer, you don't really know what you are sort of, capable of doing or willing to do until you are right there and there's something right in front of you.
Well, so let's talk about just a contingency real quick. So I'll say, and this is just my easy way of explaining what a contingency is within an offer. Any contingency in an offer you can essentially look at it to protect, it's in there in its terms to protect either party, most oftentimes the buyer. So for instance, your home inspection contingency, that is there to protect the buyer and the buyer's deposit. Your mortgage contingency, that is there to protect the buyer and the buyer's deposit. You can go appraisal contingency, that is there to protect the buyer and the buyer's deposit. We can have seller contingencies as well. So whatever contingency you're putting within the offer, it's just that term contingency is a phrase or information to protect either party, depending on how it's written. So why do people start waiving that? To offer themselves less protections, to offer themselves less outs of the contract, to make their contract more and more secure. And that's why when I said where I was saying earlier, when you can't control, you're putting in your best possible price point, and you can't control anything else about the offer. You always have control over your contingencies, depending on how risk averse you're going to be, right? Because
you're smirking at me.
Well, because you're gonna. If we did like a little mashup of every show that I've ever done, you'd hear me say, never waive your home inspection. And, we're back to times where what you just said.
It's okay, Mary. You can say it.
What you just said, though, is you don't know what you're going to do until you're in it, right? And there is a house, particularly, and if you're listening to your agents and you're listening to the professional advice that you're seeking out, there is a house where an agent's going to come up to you and say, hey, if you were ever gonna waive a home inspection, or if you were ever going to do this, or how experienced of a home buyer are you that you would be willing to take this on, maybe this is the house where you could get away with waiving your home inspection and not have it be that severely detrimental down the road. So, what are in your mind when you're talking about waiving a home inspection as a contingency entirely? Like, you as a buyer, what do you look at and say, okay, well, what's the worst possible thing that could happen to me here?
Should I reveal my thing? Okay, so
let's talk real stuff.
I think we're talking about waiving this contingency in particular because I have been very vocal on this show about saying, we would never advise this, and I have said if I was purchasing a home, I would never waive my home inspection contingency. The first offer that I did have accepted, and I talked about this, I did do a home inspection. But over the weekend, or actually today, I put in an offer on a property that I waived my inspection contingency. And that was because this particular property had a lot of things that had been updated in the past few years. I also had three additional real estate agents with me.
Four, technically.
Well, technically four, yeah. So I had Sharon, Mary, Kristen Howlett, who's been on the show many times, and Mark McNamara come to a showing that I had over the weekend. I actually had 2 scheduled showings, 2 private showings. So I hung out there for like an hour and a half. And
really got comfortable.
Yeah, we had Mark McNamara come in just to sort of have a glance over, just to make sure that everything sort of seemed good. And I felt very comfortable waiving that. And I never thought that I would, but I was presented with an opportunity that I, wanted to make my offer as strong as I possibly could. Ultimately, my offer did not get accepted. They received 30 offers on this property, which shows that there's not a lot of inventory out there. I think that all of my terms were competitive, but it did come down to my number. I felt like I put where I came in at was the value of the house.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, it's just going to be me after the closing, and I have to be the one to, make the payment every month. So if I can't feasibly do it, if I can't afford it, I'm not going to do it. And that's just how I think. So, congratulations to that buyer who got it. But I felt as though I was comfortable with waiving my inspection contingency because, we had 5 people there. So myself and 4 additional real estate agents standing there trying to come up with things that maybe a home inspector would come up with, and little things here and there, but the big ticket items that I've talked about on the show before, all of the mechanicals and the roof and septic and everything, those were all in working order, and those had all been replaced within the past few years, and I felt comfortable sort of moving forward. But I will be honest, there was a moment when I was in the house where I thought, I had like a little brief thing of panic, like, okay, maybe this isn't where I'm supposed to be, because it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. Yeah. But I had to remind myself that I'm just starting this journey, this homeowner journey, and I'm not looking for my forever home. I'm looking for my sort of first chapter, and something that I can grow in and sort of move into the next part of my life in. And I just need a place to start. And
that's an important perspective to maintain, right? So it's all about It's all about perspective, as you've heard me say many times.
It's all about perspective
on the show.
But yeah, I felt comfortable waiving my my inspection contingency. But I guess my question for you is, had I moved forward and gotten my offer accepted and everything, and what could have been the impacts of me waiving that? Like, what could have happened where I could have been like, oh gosh, I should have done my home inspection?
Mm-hmm. So the true impacts for a home inspection waiver are not as significant as you get further and further down the road, but it's twofold, right? So we really assessed this property and felt as if it was a property that was well taken care of enough that waiving your inspection contingency would not be severely detrimental to you in the future. So we're not really even thinking about your deposit at this point, because you're putting a deposit down once your offer gets accepted, whether that be $1,000, $2,000, or $5,000. So once that offer is accepted, that deposit is handed over to the listing company, and you don't get it back unless you ask for a release within your contractual period of time. Yeah. So if you have no home inspection, there's no contractual period to adhere to, ergo your deposit is not fully protected. There are other ways to protect it, but just for this scenario, home inspection contingency, if that's waived, potentially if you say to me the very next day, so you say to me tomorrow, you know what, I was driving by last night and the neighbors were crazy. I had no idea that they were going to be this crazy. I don't want to move forward. If we've already handed over that check, we have no real legal ability to be able to get out of that contract and protect your deposit. So if it's $1,000, you might be out $1,000. If it's $5,000, you might be out $5,000. Yeah. So there's that. And then more severely, in my opinion, that would probably be like the best case scenario for a buyer if they decided, we waived home inspection, it got accepted, and then they decided, they didn't feel comfortable moving forward for one reason or another before we got to purchase and sale. I'd rather know in that period. Say it's, you went down to and sometimes with these competitive offer situations, things are moving very, very quickly. So in this particular scenario, we had significant amount of time in between seeing the house and putting the offer in. But imagine you saw the house on Monday and you had to make an offer by, like, say you saw it Monday evening and you had to make your offer by today, and you didn't have time to do certain research. Well, what if we found out, that there was a significant amount of water in the basement through like an insurance claim? Yeah. And you found that out, and you found out that there was a history of water that wasn't, either maybe it was not disclosed, or for whatever reason, just using that as a scenario, you found out that there was some type of major structural health or safety type of concern with the house. And maybe you didn't find that out until after you signed your purchase and sales agreement. That's the worst scenario, because now not only so you waived your home inspection, you moved on to purchase and sales agreement, you gave another deposit when you moved on to purchase and sale, which is a more significant amount of money, and now we found out that there's something potentially detrimental that nobody was aware of. The seller wasn't aware, the listing agent wasn't aware, some type of structural defect that for some reason is blindsiding the whole entire party. You, as the buyer, have no kind of wiggle room to get yourself out of this situation. Be like, oh my gosh, maybe I would have known this if I had a home inspection, but I didn't have a home inspection. Right.
And, sort of to put myself on blast, I had a pretty, in my opinion, significant tight timeline when it came to closing. So, I wouldn't have given myself enough time to sort of back out. I was sort of to make my offer look a little
Can I say
bit.
That? Balls to the wall.
I think you can say balls.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It might be on pedal to the metal.
It might be on the I don't know list.
We were pedaling to the metal.
Pedaling to the metal. With a significantly short timeline to closing, and that was to help make my offer look more appealing. An hour before deadline, when I was writing up the offer with Mary, found out that there was 22 offers at that point, and I just felt so defeated, and I just didn't even want to put in my offer. But with some encouragement from you, I did, sort of you just assured me that, even if it doesn't get accepted, you still have to put some skin in the game, and you just have to you got to play.
You absolutely...
You can't win if you don't play.
Yeah, you absolutely never know what's going to happen in any type of real estate transaction. So is there a probability that, this transaction goes through and everything is great? Absolutely there is. But is there a probability that something doesn't go well? Yeah, that could happen too. And if your name isn't in the hat, there's no way for them to come back to us ever. So that's kind of more what it's about. Show your interest, then maybe you just never know.
Yeah. And, I will sort of give, a shout out to Jasmine from Maritime Mortgage. And, she has sort of also reassured me every single time I've had a conversation with her with any interest in a property, is like, she's assured me, you are there. Like, you can do this. You can, close in a short amount of time. You're at the finish line. You just need to get a yes from a seller,
which will happen.
Which it will happen. But anyways, back to the waiving contingencies. I felt I was in a position where I was comfortable, and I never thought that I would be.
I actually never thought you did either. I will go on record. I didn't talk you into and or out of waiving home inspection on this one. It was, I think, a very not mutual, but it was kind of like an unspoken thing. Like, hey, if this were going to be the house, you could potentially do it here. There's just enough going right.
Yeah. Well, I had to sort of reflect and take a minute to sort of think on my own and be like, okay, what could possibly come up, and as much as I love having a million people's opinions, it's also, you got to take the time to sort of have a moment by yourself.
Yep.
Because
people
like I
are
said,
noise. Even agents are noise.
After closing day, I'm the only person that's going to be living there. So I'm going to be left alone with my thoughts in my house that I bought, so I had to sort of think, okay, let me take another walk around. Let me, take another glance around. What could possibly come up? I remember you walking into the bathroom. Oh, the vanity's the vanity's cracked. I'm like, of course, Mary. Let's see that. Like, yeah, vanity's cracked, but yeah, everything else, tile looks good. Yeah. I'm like, okay, Mary.
I just got, I got to do my thing.
Yes, you do.
If I didn't find one thing wrong, then we know it would be a bad day for me. But so that's really the ramifications of waiving your home inspection. So reasons that people are doing that is because you are trying to make your offer more competitive. When a seller doesn't see a home inspection in your offer, they know that it's one less way for you to either have remorse about the house, a shorter time frame to have second thoughts. It's just a more secure deal all around, right? It just gets you to purchase and sale quicker, gets you committed quicker. And it's valuable to a certain seller.
Yeah.
Then taking it one step further, and this is always the one that will literally make me sweat. Waiving your mortgage contingency.
Yeah.
So that is a big one.
Yeah, I think at one point I was sort of blacked out for a little bit when we were at the house, but I think at one point somebody had said something like, waiving,
that wasn't me.
And I was like, absolutely not. Like, that is a hard no.
Yeah.
That's a hard no.
It's,
unless you're going to fork over some cash for me, like, no.
I think to me, it's just the implications of what you're doing when you're waiving a mortgage contingency. Because, there's a difference between waiving your mortgage contingency and entirely and having cash, right? So I have cash in hand, so this is now a cash offer. So you waive your mortgage contingency. It has nothing to do with you getting a loan from a bank. And then there's another form of waiving your mortgage contingency I'm waiving it, but I'm still applying for a loan. So it's called cash terms, right? It's not necessarily cash, but I'm so incredibly confident that I'm going to get this mortgage and that there's no reason that I wouldn't get this mortgage, or I'm going for so little of a mortgage amount, or if I can't get a mortgage, mom, dad, brother, sister, rich uncle, whomever is going to come in and be able to pay for this house cash for me. That's what you're saying.
Mary Baker, will you pay
I'll sell all of my
assets.
you're saying that, you don't need to obtain a mortgage, essentially, even though you're going to, even though you intend to. I don't need to do that in order to be able to close on this house. And I think, in my opinion, that can be very, very messy. So it happens. It works. I've done it. But there's not a moment during that transaction that I am not holding my breath being like, okay, is this, just making sure that everything is going smoothly along the way, because there's a lot more money at risk when you do that. So if you're putting a deposit down at offer, you're putting, 3 times that amount potentially, or more at purchase and sales agreement. Sometimes people are putting up to $100,000. I mean, we've seen it. We've held significant amounts of money at purchase and sales agreement. And they're putting that money in escrow to be held by the listing company, whoever that buyer is. And once you've waived those contingencies and that money has been exchanged, you're offered 10 times less protections than you would be if you had it. Is it better for the seller? Absolutely, 100%. That's why people do it, because they're trying, where they can't compete in a number, they can compete with their contingencies. So they waive those with the intention of making it so appealing and making themselves look so strong when maybe their number isn't as strong as others would be. And I'm literally sweating talking about it. Am I bright red?
Well, you're getting red. I feel like you're allergic to me.
No, I'm definitely not, but I am very hot.
It is very hot in here. But, when the mortgage contingency sort of gets waived, and then, what happens when they don't get approved for their loan? I mean, you're forfeiting your...
I mean, usually, So usually...
Are they forfeiting... Well, now that I said it out loud, are they forfeiting their... Can they get their deposit back if they waived their contingency, but they don't get approved for the loan?
No. So it's not an automatic. So nothing is an automatic. It's not like automatically your deposit goes to the seller. But because and I guess technically, you just have no legal right to fight for it anymore. Because what will happen is buyer and seller will say, oh my gosh, for some reason we weren't able to get this loan, like God forbid something happened, it was some medical incident, or somebody, lost their job unexpectedly. Like those are the major things that could happen that would keep you from getting your...
You buy a brand new car.
Yeah, you didn't know to not buy a brand new car. So those are the major things. And most often, buyer and seller would come together, reasonable minds prevail, or level heads prevail, and say, all right, this was no intention of the buyer. Like, they didn't intend to get into a car accident. They didn't know that they were going to lose their job. So let's not be jerks. Let's work out something with the deposit. But I do want to be compensated for my time as a seller, that I was off market and not selling to somebody else. And now I have future moving plans that I have to pay expenses for. But in theory, if you've waived your mortgage contingency and you've represented to the seller that you can pay for this house cash in some type of cash terms, and you can't follow through on that, and you can't get a mortgage, your money is no longer your own. I mean, if they want to, they're taking out their entire deposit. Yeah. And if you sign a purchase and sales agreement, it will say, if buyer defaults from this transaction, or from these terms that we're going to put into this 20-page contract, if you default, the deposit in some cases will automatically go to the seller. Yeah. And I've seen that happen, because I do all the deposits for Boston Connect Real Estate here. And I'm the one who is receiving the release forms that are signed. I'm the one who are getting, emails from attorneys and documents from attorneys saying this is how the money should be dispersed. Because sometimes it is, we'll just split down the middle and whatever. Or it's all going back to the seller. It's all going back to the buyer. It's all situational. But I sometimes always get the scoop and say, what are you smiling at? Premier Restoration is giving us a wave. Hi, Jake. Hi, Jake. It's interesting. But you know what? It just popped into my head, and maybe this is definitely a question for Jasmine. So Jasmine, if you're listening, I'm curious
to know, like, what if you did get into an accident and you, like, totaled your car and you had to buy a new car and now your debt to income ratio is higher, but you're in the process. Like, what's the process of...
I bet she would tell you not to buy a new car. So she'd say, like, okay, you have to rent.
But wait, rent a car?
Yeah, people... Car rentals? That's a service. Enterprise?
Yeah.
Avis?
Yeah, I know that. But I'm like, how long... at what point in the process would you have to do that? What if it was just me? You know, I don't have an accepted offer on something, but am I supposed to rent a car until I get one? Because that might be a while.
Well, yeah. So I guess it would depend on where you are within the transactional period, if you are under contract or if you're still looking, and how much money you're spending. So if you... and when I say real estate is an intimate relationship, it really is. So everybody that you choose to be involved with as a buyer or a seller, your agent, your attorney, your lender, it's an intimate relationship. And you want to look at it like that. I want to know, you know, when you're going to go buy, like if you got into a car accident, I want to know about it.
Yeah.
Because I want to talk to your lender and be like, okay,
I'll be calling you before my insurance company.
Yeah, like let me know. I mean, one time I was the first call when somebody was literally on the way to the hospital to have a baby, and I was like, why are you calling me? They were like, well, we're closing in a couple of days, and I was like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Call your mom.
I'll bring you the documents.
Thanks for letting me know. I'm so excited for you. It's a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
But
name it after me.
But
either way,
it's an intimate relationship that you want to have trust, and I mean they are intimately involved in your finances at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, where were we going with that?
I'm not sure. But if you have any questions for us, 781-837-4900 is the number. To George at the studio. And we are live on Facebook everywhere. So if you follow Boston Connect Real Estate or McNamara Broker Team, or you're part of any of the Connect pages down here on the South Shore, you can see us. Hi, we're waving. Hello. Somebody talk to us. What are you pointing at?
So it's funny, within our agenda talking about waiving contingencies, we've talked about this, and there's a quote in here that many people believe when you waive your mortgage contingency, and I've just dispelled all of that. When you waive your mortgage contingency, it is a cash deal. That is not correct.
Yeah.
The terms, just because you waived it, that is not correct. You still have the opportunity to go for a mortgage. Of course, your agent needs to be communicating that to the other agent, and seller and buyer should be aware of what all of the terms are, but that's just conversation. Mm-hmm. But no, many times if you're waiving a mortgage contingency, it is not necessarily cash. It is cash terms, and the buyer is still looking to get a mortgage. Yeah. So there still is an appraisal that's going to happen. That's important, because we can get into waiving appraisal contingencies. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, well then do that.
Okay. All right.
Well, then move into it.
And this is the reason why some people will look at that mortgage contingency and say, "Oh, that's awesome! I don't have to worry about an appraisal." Not necessarily. So if you have a waived mortgage contingency but with cash terms, there's still an appraisal involved, and you can still counter to that. You can still have a mortgage contingency but waive your appraisal contingencies.
Yeah. So
there's multiple different ways or protections within your offer and the way that you write it that you have as a buyer, you have manipulation over within reason, and ability to kind of tweak and make better or make more appealing to the seller if that's the route that you want to go down. Again, every time you waive a contingency, you're losing protections. You're potentially risking money.
Okay, so you waive your appraisal contingency. The house does not appraise for what you are purchasing it for. What happens?
So if you have the money, when your lender will know this, if you have the funds to come up with the difference in that appraisal amount, even if it isn't explicitly written in the offer, you could potentially be on the hook for whatever that appraisal difference is. Mm-hmm. So you're representing that, okay, so I've waived, I don't care if it appraises. So the house is on the market for $500,000 and I'm going to offer $550,000 and I'm waiving my appraisal contingency.
Mm-hmm. So appraisal comes in, it's $525,000. What happens with that difference?
So by representing to the seller that you've waived your appraisal contingency, you're essentially saying, I will make up the difference between that $500,000 and $525,000. So I'm
in cash.
So, well, not even $525,000. So it's $525,000 and $550,000 because my offer is $550,000. My appraisal came in at $25,000. So I need to come up with the difference.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be cash. It can be the way that you manipulate the loan. So you can go for a higher loan amount and then put some cash down, or you could put all cash down. But you are representing to them that you can make up that difference, or you can and you are willing to. That's the big key.
Yeah.
You can and you are willing to make up the difference in that appraisal amount, no matter kind of what it comes in at. Oftentimes we don't see like a full waiver of the appraisal. We see waiver up to a certain point, right? So maybe my offer was $100,000 over asking, but I'm only willing to make up, a 50 in appraisal.
Yeah.
Right. So I can put certain stipulations, or, if a house, the same scenario, if a house is on the market for 500, I offered 525. I can say, I will, buyer will cover any appraisal gap up to $25,000, because now I'm covering from my 500 to 525. And what that prevents from happening is if the property came in at 725, or no, not 475, 475, it prevents my buyer from being responsible for making up a difference even below the asking price. So you can kind of get very, very tricky.
Creative.
So it's a tricky contingency is what I really should be saying. It's a tricky contingency, but you can get very creative with the language and how you write it, and how, is it protecting you a little bit? Is it protecting you a lot? Or is it not protecting you at all?
Well, let's not give away all our secrets.
Oh, yeah. Well, did we talk about transparency here?
We did talk about transparency. Yeah, we were talking about transparency. I was being transparent about getting a rejection today, and I almost cried on air. I've been crying all day.
Better things are on the horizon.
But congratulations to the winner. But I feel sorry for the other 29 people in my position.
It might be house number 20 for them. So maybe they've gone through this rigmarole and they're just tired and they're like, hey, I waived all of the contingencies.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they did. Who knows?
Yeah. And that is what we call a silly goose. That's how I feel right now. I'm just like, I just want to wake up tomorrow.
Well, I feel like I came in here like a broken record. I was like, Mel, you can only do what you can do.
I know.
You know
what? Honestly, I've gotten every cliche today between you and Kristen and Matt even called me earlier to talk about he had a fantastic listing in Plymouth that he got multiple offers on, and he was talking to me about it, and he's like, what are you doing? You sound distracted. And I was like, I'm trying to write an offer. And he's like, oh, hold on, where is it? What are we doing? And I sort of bounced some ideas off of him, and so I told him that it did not get accepted, and he said, good, it's not your house. And I said, okay.
That's very Matt.
It's very Matt. Like, I got every cliche except for Matt. That's like, it's not your house, Yep. So
move on, carry on, next.
Yeah. Move on, carry on, next.
That's what you would do to a bad boyfriend. Next, bad house. Next.
Yeah, next. Yeah, I'm all set with you. Just what I say. In my head, I'm not that mean to people's face. But yeah, okay, we have 10 minutes left. So is there another contingency that you really want to sort of focus on before we start talking about? I'm sure you have buyers that you want to talk about in search of, but you looked at me like,
I just looked at you because I was like, I have too many. Like I couldn't name at this point. But so along with appraisal contingencies, so the number one, so it's one of actually the first contingencies that we see kind of being played around with, even more so than home inspections sometimes. And the reason for that is because when you're in a multiple offer situation, you're looking at it at baseline and saying, all right, what I have the house on the market for is what I believe as a listing agent the value is, but whatever a buyer gives me over that is what they believe the value is. So I shouldn't be held responsible for them paying over asking, right?
Right.
So when you're waiving that appraisal contingency, and this is just reality, to the bank, if a property does not appraise for what you are paying for it, you are technically overpaying for the house. Does that matter if it's your long-term house, if it's the house that you're going to be living in for 20, 30, 50 years and you're looking at it in the long-term perspective? maybe not so much. But if you're looking at it in the short term, if you're looking at it from maybe this is the starter house, which is why we're very focused on you about not paying more than the house is worth, because it is a shorter term investment potentially, and or you want to have equity to use for the next house. That's the long term game. It's not beneficial to you to be waiving this appraisal contingency, and it's not beneficial for you to be paying over, like a significant amount over asking that the property is not necessarily going to appraise at. That's my two cents on that one.
Well, and we had this conversation over the weekend when we were talking about the house that I put an offer in at. And like I said earlier tonight, I put my offer in where I felt the value of the house was. The listing agent put the house on the market where sort of the market sort of said where the value was. I agreed with that value. I did go over asking. I didn't go grossly over asking because I just didn't see the value. Not that it wasn't a wonderful house. I mean, it's a great house. But like I said, it had to make sense to me financially. And I felt like the possibility of waiving the appraisal was not, because we kept saying, would it appraise for that number? Would it appraise for, like, I didn't want to put in an offer that I was going to have to feel that repercussion of the property not appraising, and I would have to come up with the difference. Like I would be representing that I could come up with it, and it just wasn't going to make financial sense to me for that property. Who knows? I surprised myself, so I might surprise myself another time.
Got one contingency out of here.
One contingency out of here. Please, I don't want to eliminate a contingency for every offer I put in, because then I'd be left with, nothing. Please, just here's a bunch of cash. Just take it.
Just give me a house.
Although that might be a bad, or it might be a good thing to have so much money that I'm just like, just throw it at somebody.
I don't think they allow you to show up with a briefcase of money anymore. So.
No, they don't. As somebody who deposits money for a real estate company, I cannot accept cash. Okay?
It's not a thing.
It's not a thing. But yeah, it is I feel like that is a very impactful contingency to waive. It's sort of saying, I have this cash to make up the difference, and if you don't, sort of what's the repercussion of that? I mean, I don't think that you can waive the contingency if you don't actually have the cash to do it.
Yeah. So again, if you're communicating with your lender pretty frequently, and your agent would be communicating on your behalf and saying, okay, well, what would happen? So this is how far over asking we're willing to go. Next thing is to attack the appraisal amount. We think it could appraise at X. Maybe we're at Y. How could we bridge that gap? What does it look like for them? What is the cash out of pocket? What is the actual monthly payment? Because it is really, really important when you're talking about appraisal gap coverage that don't just think in the terms of cash, because it's not. If you're $20,000, that's your appraisal gap amount. It doesn't mean it's $20,000 out of cash pocket. You can do different things within the mortgage itself to allow for that.
I think in my position, I could have gone higher with my number. However, I had to think about the what would happen if it didn't appraise, and that would be something financial for me. So I had to make a financial decision. I wasn't offering $1 million on a property, but had I offered $1 million and it didn't appraise for $1 million, I would have to sort of. I put myself in a position that I probably wouldn't want to be in. And I had that conversation openly with you guys in the middle. Everyone's sitting on the living room floor because, there's no furniture in it. So we're all sitting there like powwow. And I'm like, this is exactly how it would be if I owned this house, because right now I don't own a couch. But these are conversations that buyers are having with themselves. If you waive it if you can, if you feel comfortable, and you don't if you can't. And that's just sort of being transparent.
It also depends, and I mean, every agent will say this, it very much, yes, comps are a thing. Yes, value is a thing. But at the end of the day, what is the value of the house to you? I literally just had this happen with a buyer where I told them I actually didn't believe in the value of the house. Like, even when it was listed for, I was like, you know what, a good day, maybe I could stretch it. Like, I just actually think we're probably pretty overpriced here.
Yeah.
They still made an offer, and we ended up getting it accepted, and they love the house, and for them, the value is in, I don't want to look anymore. I don't want to make this commute anymore. I'm going to be here for 15 to 20 years minimally. Like, the value is in what it means to them and not necessarily what it meant to me. So I gave you my opinion. Here's where we're at. Now, how do we structure the offer to be best suited for you going forward, and what does that look like?
Yeah.
And
I am not there yet.
Well, I was just saying, for them, that's where they were at. And that's all we're in it for at the end of the day, right? Is just to help people get to where they need to be and make educated decisions. So if you're educating, absolutely, the buyer and the seller are in the driver's seat 110% of the time.
Yeah.
That's my.
Well, we only have a couple minutes left.
That's my agent perspective.
Do you wanna highlight anything in your business personally right now?
So I wish I could go through all of the wonderful buyers that we have properties that we are looking for, but I can't. We need everything. Any and everything. We have a buyer for every single house that is out there, specifically well-qualified buyers, people who have been looking for a long time, people who are in positions that they really want to make, they're very motivated and they really want to make these situations work. But what I will say, so I'll move from a buyer to a seller. We have this beautiful condo on right now. So it's 595 Washington Street, Unit 4 in Pembroke. Doing open houses there Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's Jefferson Square. So they were units built by Kevin Sealand back in 2015, 2016. Just beautiful, beautiful townhouses. They're very suburban-esque. Being from the city, I absolutely adore them. I think there's nothing like them in the South Shore.
It's like having a brownstone in the heart of Pembroke. Yeah. It's so cool.
And it is in North Pembroke, so close to the highway from a commuting standpoint. So you couldn't be more than 5 minutes from the highway. And they have really private outdoor green space too, which I like. And then upstairs you have not one, but 2 en-suites, which I think is really nice for a lot of different demographics. It's worked wonderfully for my current sellers, and it will work wonderfully for another person. So,
do you have times yet or no?
So my open houses are, on Thursday they're 4 to 6, and Saturday and Sunday I'm 11 to 1.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much, Barry, for hanging out with me. Now we're going to go hang out somewhere else.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. If you have any questions, you can reach us, bostonconnect.com, 781-826-8000, and we will be back on Saturday. Bye.
Bye.